Glenn Loury here. This is the Glenn Show. We're the black guys at bloggingheads.tv. Identify an irony here. So there's racism and there's racism. So by not taking black people seriously enough to presume that we can be told the truth about what's actually going on in our condition in our society, without that destroying us and driving us into a corner where we'll throw tantrums and act like we're 3-year-olds. By not taking us seriously enough, you encourage this cultural phenomenon that you have put your finger on in Losing the Race of African-American performance being less than it might be because we have the ready-made excuse of systemic racism or structural impediment or whatever that accounts for our low, and we're encouraged not to take responsibility for our own lives. I don't understand why that's not racism. That is the regime that encourages a kind of passivity and a sense of spoiled fate. Being black in America precludes me from being able to do certain things. The white man will never allow me, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not at Caltech because of systemic racism. I'm not in the, et cetera. Is crippling to people, to a people. And you could be, I think, excused if you were to conclude that there is a kind of lack of respect for or valuation of the humanity of African Americans that is conveyed by this regime of patting us on the head. Patting us on the head is not taking us serious. It's not treating us as equals. I don't know. What do you think about that? I think there's racism and then there's racism. I said this the last time we talked, actually. There's enough racism to go around. There's a lot of racism in progressive quarters. And part of it is like looking at the homicide rate in black communities and saying, oh, that's because of poverty and racism. When in fact, it's because of murderous behavior by black people, which need not be so. People don't have to go around with guns killing each other. They have choices about how they live their lives. You don't take them seriously when you ascribe their pathology to forces that are external to themselves. You, in effect, convey the idea that they're absolutely impotent about what happens in their lives. You know, mass incarceration is a conspiracy against black people. I mean, that doesn't take black people seriously. We're not expected to obey the laws on the whole because of what? Jim Crow? So the argument, the police should be disbanded because policing has its origins in slave patrols that were impaneled in order to capture and return escaped property to Southern slave owners. First of all, historically, it's completely bullshit.
It's not true. Yeah.
You don't think cities with large numbers of immigrants coming in from Europe had to be policed? You don't think they call the paddy wagon a paddy wagon because it used to be used to round up Irish miscreants? So, yeah. So it's completely false that urban policing has its origins in slavery. That's simply a false statement. There's some overlap, but to ascribe it to slavery is false. Yeah. But we're going to disband the police because, according to your history, they have their origins in slavery, and they are therefore today's representation of the historical oppression of black people. Now, it's bunk. Pretty much everybody knows that it's bunk. Why wouldn't someone say so? They don't take you seriously. They're patronizing you. They're placating you. They're patting you on the head. And most of them are in the Democratic Party because they need your votes. Now I venture into territory where you might not be willing to follow me. They're patronizing you and treating you like a child, leading you around with this ring through your nose, keeping you terrified of the fact that white supremacists are going to come and get you because they haven't got any concrete, effective response to your condition. And they don't have confidence that if they treated you like adults and told you to pull your pants up and to stand up straight, that you'd actually be able to do it.
Oh, all right. That's one part. That's a don't go there part. Yeah. And I'm quite sure that is part of it. But another part of why my archetype will pat us on the head is because she's afraid or he's afraid that If you don't pat that person rages and roars and calls you a racist, and everybody can hear it. And because you don't want to be a racist in our society, which is a form of progress, a lot of people make the calculation that they would rather patronize us. I can imagine some of them over a glass of wine actually saying to their spouses, you know, I know that I'm not taking Mary seriously. I know that I'm treating Mary like a child and pretending that all that stuff is real. But you know, honey, I would rather do that than have her call me some kind of racist in the next whatever meeting, have her call me a racist on Twitter, and then have all those people join in. Honey, I'm sorry, honey. I couldn't take it. I have to admit it. I couldn't take it. That's what I think those conversations go like, and I can completely understand it. It's just that I wish that that person would say, got the wine, and she says, and you know, instead of patting Mary on the head, you know what I'm going to do? You know what I'm going to do? Hear me out. I'm going to say that she is exhibiting a victim complex, and I'm going to explain to her what that is. And I know she's going to be mad, but I know that as I move along, if I'm trying to be a good person, that is gooder than patting her on the head. Honey, am I right? You get it, honey? I would like to see that conversation happen. I can see it. I almost wish that you and I could talk to every one of these people individually, but you can't. Society is too big. I wish we were Estonian. I wish we could just do a tour and, you know, there are like 17 people in Estonia and we could talk to everybody, but we can't. I think that we're right, but we've got to talk to Mary in some different way. I don't know why she's Mary now, but we have got to talk to Charles Blow in some different way. And I hope that this archetype is capable of it, but we have to use the psychological literature. We have to put science behind it. It has to be, honey, did you read this article? Here, read it. You should read it. That's what we need.
Now, you're there in New York City and you travel in certain circles. It's a non-zero probability that you and Charles Blow, the distinguished columnist at the New York Times, could find yourselves in the same cocktail party. Talk to us a little bit about how you imagine that might go. Now, I know I've called him Charles Blowhard. I've said he's an empty suit. I said he's an idiot. I mean, in past discussions about Charles Blow columns that I've hated. So I don't expect I would have any traction with it. But you are a fairly more respectable commentator than am I, John. Could you imagine any constructive exchange? I mean, I just used Charles Blow as an example. He stands in for Nicole Hannah-Jones, who stands in for Ta-Nehisi Coates, who stands in for whatever. There's a large number of people. I'll be talking with Cornel West here at the Glenn Show in a few weeks. So we'll see. We'll see.
Tell him that John McWhorter has learned that he likes Stephen Sondheim and that I was very touched and amused and delighted. He likes Sondheim. I didn't know that. I will
tell him that. I didn't know that. I didn't know that he liked Sondheim. I knew he liked the blues, and I knew he liked
Sweeney Todd and company. Yeah, I had no idea.
Okay, well, I'll tell him. In fact, if you want to join the conversation, we can make it a foursome. I'm interviewing him and another philosopher who has interviewed him and put out a small book, Conversations with Cornel West, and what's
his name? That other one.
His name is Theodros Kiros. He's an Ethiopian philosopher who's been around Boston for many, many years. He teaches the other philosopher teaches at the Berklee School of Music. He's kind of the resident professor of philosophy at the Berklee School of Music.
We can talk about it. But yeah, so you're going to have dialogue with Cornel West.
I'm going to have dialogue with Cornel West, and for future viewers of the Glenn Show, I'm going to have dialogue with Charles Murray. Not in the same conversation.
I ordered that book, by the way. I've got to read it.
No, I think it should be read, actually. I think it's going to have to be reckoned with. You're going to have to reckon with Charles Murray's forthcoming book called Facing Reality.
But in answer... go ahead. Yes.
In which he discusses differences between racial groups in measured intelligence by test and in criminal participation in violent crime, and argues that these are very important realities that have to be confronted. This is Charles Murray's new book, forthcoming. I'm going to interview him about it sometime in June.